everyone, and welcome to another edition of One-on-One Sports. I am your host, Dalton Renshaw. I am also here with my good friend and co-host, Steven Bach. Steven, how are you this Christmas season?
It's beautiful. It's no snow, really. Well, I guess there's a little bit of snow outside.
We had like a little bit of a dusting on Christmas Eve, I believe it was, but it's been kind of subsiding and melting off.
Yeah, like, I don't know, a couple inches. Normally I feel like in northern Utah we're like in a couple feet by now, so it's weird.
It's almost a Christmas tradition at this point of like, you know, you open presents, you visit with the family for a little bit, and then you guys go out and move snow for about 30 to 40 minutes because it's dumping so hard.
Yep. And you think that you're going to be super cold out, but then you put on your nice, like, fluffy jacket and go out there, and you're just, like, sweating. Just sweat is just dripping down.
Yep, every time. I make that mistake every time because you're like, oh my gosh, it looks so cold out there. I got to put my gloves on, my beanie, 3 coats, and you're like, you're 2 driveways in, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? It's summertime already.
Especially when it just like dumps, and it's just that, like, I don't know, that somewhat mushy snow where it's just like got a ton of water weight, and you're just like, but there's a lot of it, so you're just like throwing these like 30-pound shovels around.
That slush. Yeah. I will say with all the snow kind of not hitting us yet, I'm excited because, or I should say, I'm grateful because, you know, snow can be kind of a pain in the butt sometimes, but I'm also really looking forward to at least going snowboarding once or twice this season, and so far it hasn't been the proper conditions, so I'm hoping it comes around at least once or twice we get a good storm, because if not, that'll be like 3 seasons in a row I haven't gone, and that kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, well, and especially we're gonna need the moisture. Holy cow. It's gonna like destroy us. We've got nothing, so
yeah, anyway. 100%. Okay, well, yeah, there's your local weather update for the Logan region, if you're curious at all. What do we have going for the people today on today's podcast?
So we're going to talk a little bit of football, primarily NCAA football, even more primarily, just some local football in the Mountain West, some things that are going on with Utah State, Boise State, and things that are happening there that are going to affect the Mountain West. So let's just jump into that. As far as Utah State, my heart aches because we finished the season 1-6. Not great, but there were a lot of reasons that went into that. We didn't want to touch too much into that. But yeah, we're gonna try to be ultra positive on this podcast today. Yeah. So obviously there have been some off-field things that have happened. We're not really going to get into it too much. There's plenty of resources to find out what happened between the players and President Cockett and the coaching staff there, but we're mainly going to focus on the Aggies have wrapped up their season. Obviously no postseason with a 1-6 record, but they did end up finding a new coach. Dalton, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. A name that most Aggie fans will be familiar with because of name alone and not actually anything to do with him as a coach. It's another Anderson, this time with an O. Blake Anderson coming over from Arkansas State. A lot of success there over I believe a 5-year career. Double check that for me. But having a lot of success bringing that team from a team that wasn't very good, bringing in his style of football. He loves to spread the field. He loves to be expansive on offense. And I think that's what a lot of Utah State fans were wanting to see in this hire. They wanted to see somebody, I mean, because you had the names like Graham Harrell being floated out there and people who were ultra expansive on offense and could do a lot of things on that side of the ball. And I think that's what people were looking for after such a poor start to the season and really a poor overall performance this season on offense. So Blake Anderson comes in. I'll be honest, I haven't done too much study on him and his tendencies, his coaching style and all that kind of stuff. But I can just give you the cliff notes. Really good coach, really good guy by all accounts. He's somebody who has tremendous character, from what everyone who's close to him has said, and obviously coaching staff and players who have already met him over at USU. So it looks like a really good hire. Like Steven said, there was some controversy around how the hire was made, not necessarily with Blake, but with other things surrounding it. Go look that up if you'd like to. But Blake himself looks to be a really good hire for Utah State, and somebody who probably was a little bit under the radar, but exceeds expectations for how or the type of coach that they were going to get in from what the fans were seeing.
Yeah, and I know some fans were a little skeptical because they felt like it was more of a lateral move for Anderson to go from Arkansas State to a place like Utah State. But again, this is more information you guys can get from other places, that he had some personal things going on, like the passing of his wife, that he just felt like he needed to make some changes. So I think Utah State is lucky to have him. I've seen some videos of him talking to the team and stuff, and I'll be honest, I'm a little bit excited. There's going to be a lot of rebuilding that he has to do. That's just the reality for Utah State at the moment. So again, fans are going to have to be patient with him, which notoriously I think a lot of fans aren't, but I think that's a struggle for Utah State. So I'm excited to see, like you said, he brings a great offensive mind. He's very football sound. I know some people I've talked to have worried about his recruiting ability, that it's going to be a little different over here, but I think as long as he's putting the right people around him, hopefully he can keep some of the guys who have been there, and know the landscape a little bit. Hopefully he can keep that going. But
I was going to touch on recruiting a little bit there, because I think you talk about it being possibly a lateral move, but I think going from the Sun Belt to the Mountain West is like a jump up in itself. So even though Arkansas State has probably had more success than Utah State recently, I think moving to the Mountain West will do better for recruiting. And USU itself has never been a good recruiting team. They've gotten good players. They've hit on some players, who are really under the radar. So in that way, they've done pretty well in recruiting at times, but they've never been highly ranked in recruiting. They've always been near the bottom of even the Mountain West, which is always, near the bottom of FBS. So I think that there's almost nowhere to go but up for Blake Anderson in recruiting. And I think that, when you're recruiting the areas that Sunbelt teams usually do, the Floridas, the South, stuff like that, I think if you can hit on guys from those areas, you're going to have success no matter where you go.
Yeah, and I mean, Utah State hit those areas anyway. I mean, that's where, I mean, obviously, we've had some really, really good players from Florida, from Texas, from California. And so that's going to be important. Like, understanding, like, the religious aspect of the area, kind of the cultural aspect as well, I think will be important. But again, that's why I said as long as he's got good guys around him, I'm not too worried about it.
I would agree.
Yeah. Oh, and update, he was with Arkansas State for 7 years, I believe. It says 2013 to 20, but I don't know if he was head coach the whole time, so.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. 7 years, yeah. And a lot of success early on. A couple, if I'm remembering correctly, a couple decent seasons to begin with, but then he had some really strong seasons. Did he have a 10-win season there?
I believe so.
Okay.
His bowl record was 4-6. That's popping up, right? Unfortunately, I should have went to Wikipedia. That would have been more
It's all good. It's all good.
Anyway,
we should probably shift anyways to another Mountain West coach, or should we now say former Mountain West coach, Brian Harsin, now taking his talents to Auburn, Alabama.
Yeah.
This one seems to be an upwards move for him, but leaving the program in somewhat disarray, I would say, with their performance not only against San Jose State to close out the season, who, no slight to San Jose State, was a really good team this season, but they didn't look like the normal Boise State you would come to expect, and also with a lot of the rumors and I think some of it being somewhat substantiated, the emails between Harsin and Boise State to the AAC and looking to join other conferences and all that kind of stuff. So, do you want to touch on a little bit of that and some more depth there, Stephen?
Yeah, it was information that was a bit of a surprise to me. But then the more I thought about it, it does make a little bit of sense just for the fact that Boise State just runs the table in Mountain West. Like, it's expected that they're going to be in the Mountain West Championship. If they
Yeah.
end up losing out to, Air Force or something like that, I mean, that's like their biggest like excitement. Um, I am really interested that they would want to move to the AAC. I would think that they would be trying to get more into a Power Five conference. Um, However, there are at least some teams that have had a little bit more traction as far as success goes over the last couple of years. But if they go there and then split it, like how the Mountain West is, I don't know if they're going to get those high-ranking teams or those teams that have been doing well over the last couple of years. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense other than maybe they're just bored. Maybe they were frustrated with how the Mountain West handled things this year. I don't know, but you would think that they would be looking for an upgrade rather than a lateral move as well. So
Yeah,
uh,
I saw with a lot of the situation with the Mountain West before. Um, I should say at the start of the normal season schedule with them canceling games in the Mountain West, that really irked Boise State and a few other teams. But Boise State really took it upon themselves to try to reach out and visit other conferences. And I think with what the Mountain West was lacking to do in scheduling games and getting this season started initially, that really pissed off Boise State, and so they were trying to look for another way out, maybe temporarily, but maybe looking more long term. And I think that's what kind of fueled the fire in that regard. But also what you were saying about having the AEC being almost a lateral move, and then like if you add Boise State and split it up into two divisions, what's that kind of do? I think that's an interesting question, but I also think that with them becoming a little bit more diversified, maybe bringing in more than just a Boise State, maybe if they were to bring in other teams around that caliber, I think that kind of does vault the AAC, who is already probably on the verge of being the best team of the group of five teams, or I should say the best conference of the group of fives. I think that would like basically solidify them being as the best, which also now you have the little bit of track record of teams like UCF, teams like Cincinnati, teams like Memphis being able to have really good seasons. I should say teams like Houston as well, have good seasons, challenge for those New Year's Six bowls, and then add in a team like Boise State and maybe another one. I think that makes it actually a really enticing conference for teams to schedule games against them and to build up those relationships and resumes to make maybe the AAC the new kind of P6 type conference, if you know what I'm saying.
yeah, no, I totally agree. Especially a lot of people have been really, really frustrated, in particular this year with the Pac-12. A lot of
Yeah.
people have been arguing that the quality has been going down. Things are really changing there, which is really sad to me because obviously there are a lot of teams. I really enjoy the Pac-12. I think it's a great conference, but there have been some issues for sure. And if there was a switch or an addition, it would be interesting to see, like you're saying, maybe even if the AAC could pick up. I mean, if they're already coming out this far for Boise, if they could pick up some more teams there, if there'd be some shuffling around with the Mountain West as well, would be
Yeah.
interesting to see.
Yeah, quickly, let's jump on that. We'll probably do a deeper dive into this maybe as the off season progresses. But looking out in the Mountain West and how they might reshuffle if Boise State was to leave, how do you kind of see that shaking out? Do you think that it would be a shortened to only 10 teams? Do you think they could like realistically bring in a 12th team to replace Boise State? You're losing your best team, so not only is the conference getting worse, but like is the conference gonna take a full step back and become a 10 team league with no divisions? What would your gut feeling be if that situation arised?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I mean, initially my thought would have been, well, if Boise State leaves, just kick out San Jose State, and then you're a 10 team. But